All right, guys, Jake with East Coast Polishing here. We have a little thimble going on here. Pro Red, we're gonna do a hand polish over this logo here to show you guys the actual true power of it. And then I'm gonna show you the difference between the Pro Red and how deep and depth of a shine we can get with our copper and brass kit. This thimble is made of brass. It does have a lot of flex to it. They can be hard to polish, but they do polish out phenomenal. Typically, when you do one of these, I don't believe you're gonna be wanting to sand it because of the material. You don't wanna take it off. I'm gonna do a small section so you will still see those mill marks in there, but it will still look phenomenal. It's gonna have a great shine. I'm gonna be starting off with my pink wheel with a single stitch in it with a variable speed grind. I'm gonna be cutting at about 3,000 RPMs. The first step to it will be a rake in our T121 cut compound. Your rake you're gonna run right off your handle here. You're gonna run it on your buff to break up the fibers. When you get a new buff, it's not gonna be black like this. This buff has been used, as I've actually done some polishing process with this already. It's gonna show up and be perfectly clean. When you break it up, you're gonna wanna hold it on the handle. If 3,000 RPMs or 35 seems like a little too much for you, it is okay to slow down the RPM of the grinder. So for me, just to show beginners, I'm gonna slow it down to about 2,400 where I'll have a lot of control over it. We're gonna rest this rake right on the handle and we're gonna break up this fibers to clean out this buff. The time to rake the buff is generally when you see a lot of compound buildup. On brass or copper, it's gonna have a very gold finish to it. When you do anything with aluminum or anything of such like that, you're gonna see kind of a silver buildup. That golden buildup is what you wanna get rid of so you don't have any extra kind of scratching come into the material you're working with. Adding compounds, we're gonna add a small amount of the T121 to this buff behind the handles where you wanna add. But if you add up here, it's gonna wanna pull the rouge out of your hand. But if you add behind the handle here, it's gonna add it smoothly without any kind of pulling on the rouge itself. So here's how we're gonna add it. After that is done, we're gonna bring up the RPMs. We're gonna go up to about 3,500, and you're going to see me start with the polishing process. When I cut, I'm gonna be using a decent pressure into this. Being as flexible in how it is, I'm not gonna be using a ton of pressure, so you might see me going over this 3-4 times just to be able to ensure that I have a good cut to get that real true depth, clarity, and shine. So after we've ensured that we have had put a proper cut into this, you can see the level of shine we have through this piece. The shine is absolutely incredible with that cut, but it still has a little bit of hash. Hash is gonna be the actual marks from the grinder. They're gonna look like little golden and silver lines running through it. We wanna try to minimize those. So one of the best ways I've found to minimize those is you're gonna pick up your second buff. It's called a UBM buff. It's a softer white. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna rake this buff out. Again, now we're down to 2,600 RPMs. Very easy to maintain. We're gonna rest our rake. We're gonna run it as such and break it up. Once we're done with that, we're gonna take our Q36 compound, the green, and we're going to apply this compound. When applying your rouge, you wanna start from your inside and work your way to the outside to ensure that you've coated the entire buff and compound. That way you can properly apply it. You're again gonna keep your buff around 2,600 RPMs, and we're going to run through this probably about 2 times to help ensure knocking down and getting the best shine and clarity we can out of our piece. Anyways, let's get to it. So with that buff, if you noticed on my first pass, I actually had a good amount of pressure to really work that Q36 and color compound into this piece. On my second time going through that, I actually really lightened up on the pressure. I kept the RPMs right where it was, but I made sure to keep a nice, light, steady, consistent pressure. Now I'm gonna drop down to my final finish pad, which is gonna be the super finish white pad. It's actually the softest one. We're gonna lower our RPMs down to about 1,800. It's safe to run this buff at a max speed of 1,800 RPMs. Personally myself, my minimum is 1,400, but you can go lower than that. We're gonna start with raking it out the same way as we've done before. Right on the handle, start it up. We're gonna put it in. As you saw right there, it does grab. This buff will grab the rake the hardest as it is the softest. It'll flex around it and it can pull it out of your hand. So always be aware of pressure on it. After that, we're gonna take our purple super finish bar. We're gonna start at the inside the same way we did with the Q36 and our cut, and we're gonna work it to the outside. Again, always make sure you're applying behind your handle. That's gonna give you the least chance of it grabbing the rouge and pulling it out of your hands. Now we're gonna come through at 1800 RPMs, moving nice and gingerly across this piece with very little pressure. Now for the purpose of demonstration, I'm gonna lay another piece of tape now over what I've done directly next to this piece of tape. Remove that one, and I'm gonna polish this out with Easy Red, show you guys how we apply it and how we use it, and you'll be able to see the clear difference of the shine factor between using an actual Airway buff and doing it the professional way, or if you don't wanna spend the money on the professional kit and you wanna do it out with just hand polish for whether it be financial or just a personal preference, you can see the difference. The hand polish I'm picking for this task that I think is going to give us the greatest results and the best success is the Renegade Pro Red Heavy Cut. This is one of my favorite go-to hand polishes. The most important key factor with this is to shake it very well before use. It will generally separate and settle. It does take quite a bit of time. So you're going to want to shake this product very well before use every time. You're going to take either a microfiber or an applicator pad. You do get applicators in your copper and brass kit. You're going to apply a small quarter-sized dab on the rag. You're gonna take your quarter-sized dab into your piece of metal. You're going to start out in a rubbing motion of like a circle. This compound is going to cut and eat into this to start bringing out a shine. It does take a lot of elbow grease and more time than a actual buff. The biggest difference between these is the price point. We're gonna add a little more compounds here. Make sure your rag is saturated well. As you can tell, this compound does cut very well as we're already pulling off the lettering that was on this piece. This lettering is not a vinyl, it seems to be some kind of ink stamped onto it. Now I'm gonna come back across this with a nice dry microfiber. We're gonna remove that residue and you're gonna see the difference. So now with a clean microfiber, we're gonna come across this piece here, remove just like this. The more times you do apply this compound, the rubbing compound it is, the better result you're gonna get. Now, as you can see, I didn't put a lot of time and effort into that. We did still achieve a pretty good shine out of that. I would say for a musician, they might be pretty happy with that. There is a reflection out of it, and I do think it would look good. But obviously, as you can see, the rouge works a lot more efficiently and a lot more effectively on our piece here. The rouge is definitely the way I go for saying professional if you want professional-like results. But if you did use the rubbing compound, there are other application ways using machinery that it can be done. But to achieve the best results in the most professional aspect, I lean towards the kits. Obviously, our rubbing compound does affect it. As a piece being this heavily oxidized, I would recommend something like this. And then to maintain your machine, I would recommend the rubbing compound to achieve the longest lasting shine possible.